right, everybody. Welcome to the Gazelle School of Business webinar on tripling revenue. This is one of many free webinars we're offering to the piano service industry that will cover every topic you can imagine related to building and running a piano service business. Luke will be monitoring the chat and Q&A, so ask your questions there, and we'll try to answer as many as we can at the end. So let's dive right in. Tripling revenue is usually about a 2-year process. There's about 9 months to a year of behind-the-scenes work that starts the day you decide that you want to triple revenue, then another year or so of application. In this webinar, we're teaching you the science behind tripling revenue in your business, and we'll show you how one person can generate $300,000 in revenue a year while working a sane schedule. Yeah, I know, that's right. I said one person, $300,000 a year in top-line revenue without killing yourself. If no one's ever told you it's possible, it's probably because they don't know how to do it. We're also going to cover what it takes to build a business at each of these revenue points, but we'll primarily be focusing on a $300,000 one-person show and a $1 million company, because these are the two attainable things that nobody in our industry has proven that they know how to do well. There are actually a few $1 million piano service businesses out there, but nobody's teaching you how to get there. And that's why we're doing these Gazelle School of Business webinars. Today, I'm here with Timothy Barnes, a registered piano technician and the co-founder of Gazelle.
Hey, George. You know, businesses tend to either accidentally lose money or intentionally engineer things to make money. It's usually one or the other. One of the reasons it is so important to understand the fundamentals of how to 3x revenue is because it's easier to run a successful business when you're not about to blow a gasket doing a bazillion appointments a day. It's just easier to run a business that way. And the truth is, a better designed business is simply easier to run. So think about it. A business designed for $30,000 a year can do in excess of $100,000 a year, but it will overheat and burn out the person driving it. On the flip side, doing $100,000 a year in a business that is designed to do $300,000 a year is a walk in the park to manage and run.
So why can't you triple revenue? Well, most people just don't know how to 3 times the revenue, and they often think it involves doing more of the same things that they're currently doing. But they couldn't be more wrong. As a result, they waste decades of their life focusing on all the wrong things that are not going to work. Tripling your revenue actually involves doing a lot less, not a lot more. So let's dive in. Tripling revenue is easy if first you need to know your potential. Know your potential. Then assess the right problems and stop shooting in the dark. Just turn the lights on, take a breath, look around the room. It's not as hard to find where you are when you're looking this way. Now, everyone can triple revenue, but that doesn't mean they can do it today. We're all going to start in different places. We all have different goals, backgrounds, and giftings and temperaments. But the truth is, every single one of you can triple revenue if you want to. But your goal might be to just double. It really doesn't matter. If you want to grow your business, this is how you need to think in order to do it well.
But is it really that easy? Well, once you understand the process, yes, actually it is really that easy. Think about it. The second time you do a puzzle is always easier than the first. But it feels impossible if your eyes are blindfolded or you are in a dark room. So let's talk about the biggest secret you need to know about 3xing your revenue. We call it the law of 3xing growth. Every time you triple revenue, your business plateaus. I'm going to say that again. Every time you triple revenue, your business plateaus. This is true whether you go from $30,000 to $100,000 in revenue, you are going to plateau. When you go from $100,000 to $300,000 in revenue, you're going to find that there's a plateau you hit at $300,000. And when you go from 300,000 and triple again to 1 million, same thing happens. And this has been studied in a lot of different fields, a lot of different industries, and it holds true as you keep going. So when you go from 3 mil to 10 mil, there's another plateau, 10 mil to 30 mil, and it holds true all the way to the billion. So if you're going to go from 1 billion to 3 billion or 3 billion to 10 billion and beyond, every time you triple revenue, your business plateaus. But that's not the end of the story. The reason for this plateau is because you have exceeded the limits of your infrastructure. It may have taken A plus B to get to $100,000 a year. So if you want to 3X again, you need to change gears. You have to change something significant about your business. Just adding C to the equation isn't enough. You actually have to stop doing A and then change B to B prime and then add B prime to C to pivot into a new gear. If you just keep trying to do A and B, you will feel like you are spinning your wheels once you hit around $100,000 in top line revenue. But the moment you make the right adjustments, drop A, change B, and add B prime and C together, right, you almost 3X your revenue overnight. And the same is true if you want to 3X again. Drop B, change C to C prime, and add D, and voila, right? You will suddenly 3X from $300,000 a year to $1 million. And if you don't know this is what it's going to take, then as a business owner, you feel like there's this invisible barrier somewhere around $100,000 a year. And the truth is, yes, there is a barrier right at about $100,000 a year. The studies back it up, right? You know, the very thing that worked so well to get you from $30,000 a year to $100,000 a year is actually the thing that's causing your plateau. And you have to let go of that, or whatever it is, whatever that is, because now it's probably your biggest limiting factor. It will never forget. I will never forget, actually, the moment that I realized this in well-loved piano. I was actually Barnes Piano Services at the time doing about $320,000 a year in annual revenue. And all of a sudden, I just completely stalled out, right? I started doing more of the things that had historically worked, only to realize they suddenly no longer made a difference. And when I learned about this principle, a light bulb went off. And I suddenly realized that I was in a plateau. And then I looked back over my past revenues and realized I had actually hit a plateau years before, right around the time that I hit $100,000. I plateaued like at 115 or 120. I just didn't know it at the time. And I happened to start doing just enough of the right things to drop A, find B prime, and add C. I just didn't know what I was doing. So I kept on going right past 100, past 200, past 300, until I ran into a brick wall. And let me tell you, that one hurt. Because no matter what I did, once I crossed that $300,000 threshold in our business, it went nowhere. It just completely stalled out. And I think I still have a bruise on my forehead from that. I had absolutely no clue what was going on. I felt like things were just trucking along. I knew something had changed. All of a sudden, something stopped working, and I was determined to find out. And it frustrated the heck out of me until I saw a graph similar to this, and then all of a sudden, just everything kind of made sense.
So think about it this way. A salesperson is capable of selling $3 million a year is vastly different than the salesperson doing $10 million a year. And it's even more different than the person doing $30 million a year. And Tim, you can see this exposed in the behavior of every company, right? So let's bring it home a little. If you're running a $30,000 company doing $120,000 in sales, think about that. You're running a $30,000 company doing $120,000 in sales. Well, you're never going to get to $300,000 by doing more of the same thing because you don't have the right infrastructure. You probably don't have the right skills, and you don't have the right mindset to efficiently build a $300,000 company. Now, that doesn't mean you can't. It just means you have growing to do. And there's a lot of things that you can do as a small business that don't work for a big company. But this is true even if you remain a one-person show. You still hit the same revenue plateaus, which leaves you with a decision to make. To change or not to change. The trick is knowing what to change, what to cut, and what to add. So what determines whether I have a $30,000 business, a $100,000 company, or a $1 million company? All right, so let's briefly cover the characteristics and the personality types of each size business. $30,000 businesses are often solopreneurs, right? They're freelancers, people subcontracting for other companies. They have very low marketing costs, and they've often been in business for less than 5 years. On average, this business only does $125 a day in revenue, almost never does more than about $500 in a single day. Now, a $100,000 business, it's often a successful freelancer, rarely subcontracts their services, may or may not have an office staff. They've probably been in business for a minimum of 5 years. On average, this business does $420 a day. It almost never does more than $1,000 a day. And this business probably has had erratic monthly revenues. They're often skewed by big repair jobs. It's possible it could be a $100,000 company doing $100,000 a year in revenue. But more likely, this is a $30,000 business doing $80,000 in revenue and $20,000 in big repair jobs. It looks like a $100,000 company, but in reality, it's a $300,000 company. Sorry, it's a $30,000 company going 100 miles an hour in first gear. And without changing gears, this business will struggle to ever average more than maybe $120,000 in revenue.
Now, a $150,000 business, by definition, cannot be a $30,000 business, right? This business owner had to fix something and fix one of the fundamental flaws in their $30,000 infrastructure just to be able to hit the $150,000 number. Right, so they probably changed gears in the right areas. They may not have hit everything they needed to do, but they did enough of something that they kind of got things rolling. And they are doing well running at about 150% efficiency. And they still have room to grow before they completely max out. If they press on the accelerator a little, they can grow another 50,000 to 75,000 before they will start feeling the burn, because they happen to fix some of the infrastructure that got them from a $30,000 to a $100,000 company. And so now they can actually hit 100, 200, and they're going to plateau around 300. And somewhere around that $300,000 mark, they're going to start to find that as they approach it, it's not this magic number. You don't just go up to it, right? As you approach it, you slow down and slow down and slow down. It gets harder and harder and harder and harder and harder to actually get up to there. But then they plateau. And now they're running a $100,000 model doing 3x their potential, and they've hit their plateau.
Now, a $300,000 business is often organized, focused, and has strategically built hundreds of online reviews. They usually have some support staff and may or may not have multiple technicians. Or it could be a $100,000 business owner who is so stressed out the wazoo, running in circles just to produce an insane revenue that is 3 times their business potential. Or it could be a business that is perfectly poised to 3 times their growth to $1 million. These different business owners might be doing the same revenue, but one is full of stress and the other is not. Now, earlier we told you we would teach you how to build a $300,000 business as a one-person show. And we're going to be talking about that, how to do it the right way, not the stressful way.
And lastly, $1 million company, right? This company has found a way to scale and be profitable. You don't get here if you don't do those 2 things. Or just like before, they could be a $300,000 business who hired a bunch of employees, ramped up their RPMs, and everybody in that company is stressed because they are plateauing at around 3x their potential, and everybody is feeling the pressure of that lack of infrastructure. And so the type of business model you have is absolutely key to beginning your journey towards 3xing revenue. Running a business is like riding a bike, a 10-speed bike. There comes a point where no matter how hard you pedal, you are not going to go faster unless you learn how to change gears.
So let's talk about infrastructure. In addition to your business's personality, each size business has a certain feel to how they run that confirms any limitations you're going to face.
First is revenue. This is the obvious one, right? This is actually what kind of benchmarked off of that graph a moment ago. And this one's really easy, except you need to take the average of the last 3 years of revenue and use it as a baseline. On average, if your last 3 years of revenue is less than $100,000 a year, then you are running a business with a $30,000 infrastructure. We know this because it is very difficult, almost impossible, for a $30,000 business to sustain long-term revenues that exceed 3x their revenue potential. So you might briefly get above that $100,000 mark as an anomaly, but it isn't sustainable unless you have changed gears and sailed past that plateau. And it's important to use your average revenue to tell this story here, because a company averaging $6,500 a month who delivers a $25,000 rebuild right before Christmas technically did $103,000 last year. But you can take a moment to celebrate that milestone. That's important. You cleared $100,000. That's a huge, huge hurdle. But don't think you have arrived at a $100,000 company just because you got the number. In reality, you're just a $30,000 company averaging $80,000 a year who happen to have a really big sale. So good luck repeating this next year without changing gears. It was an anomaly. So use the average of your last 3 years of revenue, but also remember that revenue is only part of the equation here.
So how easy is it for customers to do business with you? You have to make it easy. And we've said this before, companies organically start to grow when they focus on making it easy for customers to do business with them. This is true because in order to pass the $100,000 mark and the $300,000 plateaus, there has to be someone in your organization who cared enough to constantly improve this area of your business.
Automation. $30,000 companies are heavy on manual data entry, or they're just completely disorganized. The smaller the company, the more limitations to growth you will find. Most small businesses physically cannot sustain much more than $100,000 a year without improving their systems and using better automation.
Simplicity. Easy to understand equals easy to repeat equals simple. Simplicity is a mindset that influences every decision you'll make as a business owner. The more committed you are to building a simplicity framework, the more potential your company is going to have for growth.
Branding and identity. A $30,000 business looks, feels, and smells like its owner. A $100,000 company could feel this way, but it's usually a little more detached, almost as if the owner intentionally distanced their business from their personal identity. And a $300,000 company almost always has a branded identity that has nothing to do with the owner. A $1 million company uses team pronouns instead of personal pronouns, has a mission statement, and a branded identity that infiltrates the entire organization. It has also identified its tribes, both the tribes of customers that it attracts and its tribe of team members. and knows the type of client it is going after and where to find them. This goes beyond just having a logo or a cute business name. This cuts to the core identity of the entire organization and how they integrate their branding into the infrastructure they have built.
Client acquisition costs. The smaller the company, the cheaper your client acquisition costs will be. But be warned, because as you grow, it's going to get more and more expensive to find new clients. You see, a $30,000 company can basically get away with free marketing. They rely heavily on literal word-of-mouth referrals to build their tribe. A $100,000 company uses many of these same tactics, but will also need to start utilizing different kinds of paid ads if they want to grow. A $300,000 company relies almost exclusively on small purple cows and some strategically placed paid ads. If you don't know what a purple cow is, we'll talk about them a little bit later. And a $1 million company finds big old purple cows. They know their tribe. They strategically used focused paid ads to reach that tribe. And one of the biggest surprises to small business owners are the real-world client acquisition costs they face as they grow. But if you know what to expect, then you'll quickly learn how to monitor your CAC ratio to ensure you're not paying too much in client acquisition costs. But this is a topic for another day.
Leadership potential. This is a big one. $30,000 businesses typically have young leaders or rookie business owners who are still finding their sea legs. $100,000 companies have seasoned business owners who either lucked into doing 3 or 4 of these things really well, or were very intentional as they grew as a business owner to pick off the things that they needed to do to keep their company growing. $300,000 companies need to hit 7 out of 10 of the things we're covering on this list, and they need to do most of those at a really high level, right? They also tend to have very seasoned business owners at the helm. $1 million companies, by definition, know what they're doing and are strategically hitting 9 out of 10 of these things at a really high level. And the leader at the helm is usually pretty charismatic and is somebody that has cast a vision and knows how to get people all pushing together for that vision.
Which actually speaks to the next item, employee training. See, this becomes a bigger deal for companies with revenues higher than $300,000. But as a smaller organization, the employee training looks a lot like ongoing education for the business owner. But think about it this way. One of the reasons your income is limited around $100,000 is because you can only be in one place at a time. You can either be generating revenue or attending a training seminar. You can't do both, so there's always a trade-off between revenue and progress. The trade-off isn't bad, it's just the reality of being a smaller organization.
Entrepreneurial focus. Successful business owners don't get distracted by every bright, shiny idea they have. I'm guilty of this as a young business owner. I used to get distracted by every bright, shiny idea I had, and I was pulled in 1,000 different directions. They do the opposite, right? They become hyper-focused on just 1, maybe 2 things at a time, and they will almost always still take a risk on an unproven idea, but they know how to quickly find the errors and cut things that don't work and move on to things that will actually work.
And lastly, profit. And this is the most important. I'm going to say it again, profit. It's possible you think you're doing pretty well running a $30,000 to $100,000 company that's actually losing money. But losing 10% of $30,000 isn't that big of a deal. But it becomes even more important in a $300,000 business because you can lose $30,000 on a 10% miscalculation. And in $1 million business, all you need is a 3% rounding error, and you can flush $30,000 down the toilet. So do this 3 times, and you're losing more money than you were making in total revenue just a few years prior to this. Which is why you should never try to grow until you can prove that you are able to be profitable at the lower revenue points. This is where $1 of profit becomes the ultimate success story. You don't need much, but If you can prove that you're able to turn at least $1 profit at the lower revenue points, you're most likely to succeed as you grow.
Once you know what your potential is, the next thing that you need to do is assess the right problems, right? We just need to look in the mirror now and say, okay, here's my revenue potential. Here's what I'm doing, or here's what I'm doing, right? I need to figure out where's the problem. It isn't enough just to know the potential of your existing business model, organization, and underlying infrastructure. If you want to 3x revenue, you have to properly assess the right problem. So how quickly can you grow has everything to do with what kind of business you have and where it is at on this graph. If you have a $300,000 business doing $120,000 in revenue, you are going to grow so fast and with so little stress, you won't even feel it. And because you've changed gears already and are currently underperforming your potential, you could easily grow well past $700,000 a year before you need to start thinking about changing gears again. And think about this, growing your business is never as easy as just throwing marketing dollars at it. But in this scenario, that's exactly what you need to do because you have a ton of capacity to grow. Your biggest limitation is probably the speed at which you can do customer acquisition. But let's go back to our $120,000 example and consider a different scenario. Here, you have a $100,000 business doing the same $120,000 of revenue a year. Well, congrats, because you've successfully changed gears once and you are well on your way to 3xing your revenue again. You've got potential and room to grow, but not that much. By the time you add $80,000 in revenue, you will be hitting revenues of $200,000+ a year, and your growth will be slowing to a crawl as you approach the next plateau at 300. For this business, you need to grow a little and then pretty quickly start shifting gears and start focusing and thinking about, okay, I know I'm approaching that plateau. What can I be doing now to address the issues I'm going to face? The plateau is coming. And lastly, consider a different company that is doing the same $120,000 revenue, but this time from the driver's seat of a $30,000 business. This business is completely tapped out. First off, the odds you got here in the first place are really low, almost zero. Just the fact that you are here means you are either incredibly lucky or you are super stressed out because the harder you push on the accelerator, the slower you go. You might be thinking that advertising more or building a better website or getting referrals is what's going to help you. But your problems go much deeper than that, right? This is often the sign of a business owner who has no idea how to fix and 3x revenues. They are completely maxed, stressed, and frustrated because nothing is working. You probably sense that inside of you and you feel stuck in the wrong gear, but you're having a really hard time trying to figure out what you need to get out of that gear and what gear you need to go into. Your engine is revved up, but your car isn't going any faster. And this scenario can happen at any revenue point, right? A $100,000 business trying to do $500,000 of revenue a year is just going to plateau and stall out and not go anywhere, right? And the reverse, the revenue has the same problem as you go up. If you ever find yourself in this situation, you need to stop, you need to punt, live to fight another day, and then change gears.
So once you know what to look for, you can easily triple your revenue over and over again. So stop shooting in the dark. All you do is build a model, ramp it up to tripling the revenue, change gears, then rinse and repeat. And also keep in mind that you can preempt that pending plateau by getting ahead of the curve once you get past about 2.5 times your revenue growth. This is still going to be a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. It's still going to be a lot of work, but it'll save you a ton of time by knowing what to expect and not investing in failed solutions.
And you can use your past revenues as a benchmark. If you still have the same infrastructure that you did when you crossed the $30,000 threshold, the $100,000 threshold, or the $300,000 benchmark, then you know you have a problem. You actually know you're going to plateau and you might already be there. So instead of pushing harder, just shift your focus to changing gears instead of trying to grow revenue. Okay, but as soon as you do this, you're going to encounter the dip. At Gazelle, we call this the trough of despair. It happens in all businesses, and I first watched it happen in Well Loved Piano, and then later I actually watched it happen in Gazelle, and since then in numerous other businesses who we've had the privilege of working with. The first time you triple revenue is the hardest. The second time is easier. The third time is even easier. So think about it. As a young company, you push the accelerator of your $30,000 little moped, and you push it so hard you manage to get it up to $80,000 to $100,000 a year. Then no matter what you do, the thing just stalls out. Eventually you realize you want to go faster, but you need a different vehicle. But in order to shop for a new car, you have to slow down, you have to take your foot off the gas. And as a one-person show, this is going to cause an immediate 20 to 30% drop in revenue. This is the trough of despair. It feels emotionally miserable because in your head you're thinking, I was doing this and now I'm doing this. Like, what's wrong? Right? Well, there's no way around it. Any change in focus from you, the business owner, is going to pull your foot off of the gas. And you're actually going to slow down regardless of what you do, because the laws of physics are about to kick you in the face if you keep going. You can't push a moped to 80 miles an hour. You just can't do it. You're going to crash, right? And so you are either going to end up in the hospital or you're going to shift gears before that happens. So plan for it in advance. This is almost always happens for the first time in somebody's life when they pass $80,000 and are between 80 and 120 is really where it's going to hit. It's different for different people, but this cannot be avoided. But also remember, it's temporary. So let's make this as temporary as possible.
So you have two choices. Work harder and be stressed beyond measure and tear your body apart, or you can work smarter. Change gears, change things up so you can easily cruise your desired speed. So take a temporary drop in revenue so you can focus on fixing the underlying issues. And we're going to talk about what those underlying issues are and how to fix them in just a moment. Because the faster you fix it, the faster you can reboot and scale up with far less effort and far less stress. And this doesn't mean you have to lose money. Because by the time you're doing this much revenue, you usually have some fat you can trim. You just need to find about $15,000 to $20,000 in advertising or other non-essential expenses to cut from your books and use this to help offset the drop in revenue. Remember rule number one, always be profitable at every revenue point. No excuses, always. This is why profit matters so much. If you're profitable, you can also spend 3 to 5 years stashing your profits in a savings account to help buffer against the coming dip. If you had $25,000 or so in cash going into this, then the dip, you wouldn't bat an eye at it. You would just cut back a little, retool, and reboot.
Next, let's talk about some practical ways to transition. We already covered this work smarter, not harder. So that's step number one.
Mm-hmm. So next, set a revenue floor for your transitional period. I'm going to say that again. Set a revenue floor. We're not asking you to give everything up. You're just going to ease up on the revenue throttle just a little to focus more time on changing the gears. Simply say, I know I can easily generate $80,000 in revenue, so that's going to be my floor. I'll stop killing myself for 1 year. I'll drop back to $6,500 a month to free up cap space to change those gears. And if you've not done so already, hire an accountant today. This takes very little time to set up. It'll free up hours of valuable time each week for you to shift your focus. If you have an accountant already, consider firing them, because they might have been good at running your company in the past, but that doesn't mean that they're the right choice for the future. So even this, you're going to look at and ask yourself, is this a place I need to change gears? You're going to interview them again and make sure that they're not part of your problem.
That last part, considering firing an existing accountant who helped you get to $100,000 a year, that's a tough one, right? Because it might not be an accountant. It might be front office staff. It might be somebody else. But there's probably somebody in your organization you need to consider doing that with. But the next thing, we're going to use 12-week goals to start making progress, right? I personally get more done doing 12-week goals than I have ever achieved in the past. I just set 3 to 4 attainable goals every 12 weeks. I focus on them in order, one at a time. I do them, I take a week of rest, and then I set new goals. My stress level is down, my effectiveness is up, and I have more mental clarity, and my ability to make better business decisions has skyrocketed. So if you haven't already, read The 12-Week Year by Brian Moran. Next, consider waking up early, right? Wake up early and work longer during the hours that your clients don't want you in their home, right? I used to be a night owl, but during one of the transitional periods of my life, I actually started waking up consistently at 4 a.m. and I would work from 4 to 6 or 6:30 in the morning before the kids got up. I liked that time so much, I've actually kept that going forward. And so it's a temporary solution until we finish rebooting and retooling the business to do more revenue, right? I don't do work at 4 a.m. anymore, but I'm definitely more of an early riser now. So I started waking up at 4 a.m. during this transitional period, and it was just really nice. Now, you might be a night owl. You might choose to do that on the weekends, on a Sunday, on an evening. But the idea being just do the transitional work in hours when your clients don't want you, so you have to take less of a business hit.
Next is hire a part-time office assistant. So hire a part-time office assistant to free up some extra capacity.
And don't do all of this at once, right? Maybe you spend 3 months listening to podcasts, 2 months hiring a bookkeeper and getting them familiar with everything, then 3 months training an office assistant, and then use all of your commute time to clarify your vision. And that's about 8 months worth of work. And within the year, you can be ready to tackle the next step.
Retooling should only take around 18 months. So, all right, what would we do if we woke up in your shoes and needed to triple revenue in the next 18 months? So Luke is going to post a link to a handout for you to download that has all of this info. So we're going to jump right in and run right through it. If we wanted to triple revenue in 18 months, then knowing what we know today, here's how we would do it.
First, I would focus on monthly, not annual revenue. Going from $5,000 a month to $15,000 a month in 18 months is totally possible. But it is a lot more overwhelming to think about having to go from 60,000 to 180,000, right? It's the exact same thing. So focus on monthly revenue, and let's set a goal for 18 months from now to be hitting $15,000 a month.
Sign up for Gazelle. We're not kidding. You can't triple revenue without Gazelle. Automated reminders, client self-scheduling, limited no-show customers, organized client data, managed calendar, maximized travel time, better estimates and condition reports. On average, customers grow about 41% in their first year. But we've literally had people double their revenue in 9 months just by being more organized. Get organized. Now, this isn't us being a salesman. This is us saying Gazelle is the only product that does so much of what you need to triple revenue that you literally cannot get close without it.
Next, focus on your leadership. You don't need to totally change everything about who you are. Just focus on trying to improve some of the most important things by 30%. right? So be more focused and disciplined in a few key areas. And this is going to cause you to acknowledge weakness and focus on growth. And that alone could be that little bit that you need to start changing gears and will help accelerate that process.
Have entrepreneurial focus. Entrepreneurial focus. Are you trying to do too many things at once? Field service, rebuilding, piano moving, etc., etc. Just focus on one thing at a time and stop allowing yourself to chase every bright and shiny idea you have. Slow and steady wins this race. Over 18 months, do more of the things you know will work and force everything to be profitable. Consider hitting pause in some areas instead of hitting stop. It's a lot easier to emotionally get over that hurdle this way. If there's an important part of your business that you just don't have time for right now, pause it. Focus one thing at a time.
Focus on profit. If you require everything you do to be profitable, then you will immediately know when you have a problem. We had a great School of Business webinar on this topic not too long ago, and the link to this is in the handout. But think about this. There is a time for being innovative and a time for just taking risks and saying, you know what, I want to go there and I'm going to go do it whether I fail or not. But now is not that time. If you want to triple revenue in the next 18 months, you need to do it by being focused only on the things that you know will work and that you know you can turn a profit on.
Focus on simplicity. Watch the School of Business webinar we did on simplicity. Simplifying your business model requires you, the leader of your company, to have a focused mindset. You need to remove complexity because overly complex business models prevent you from scaling your revenue. Also, I would suggest reading Dave Ramsey's book, Entrepreneurial. The link to that is also in your handout.
Making it easy for people to do business with you. Essentially, be better organized. And during this part, we're basically going through this in order of what we would do. So first things first, second things second, right? And so at this point in the juncture, I would take some time, maybe a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks, and I would just start going through every part of my company trying to make it easier for people to do business with me there. Again, utilize Gazelle for what it's good at. Watch the past webinar we did on simplicity and do 12-week goals to spend a couple of months tackling a few things to make it easier for people to do business with you.
It's time to readdress automation. Remember the automated reminders you set up when you first started using Gazelle? Well, it's time to revisit them. See, those served their purpose. But if they were going to triple revenue, they would have done it already. So in the handout, there's a link to a training webinar our team did on using Gazelle's reminders. It's time to improve your automation and drive more business, better engagement, and more customers your way.
Branding and identity. Read Story Brand by Don Miller if you haven't already, and Tribes by Seth Godin. These are both really easy reads and will help you improve your message so people can listen. And the links to both of these are in that handout that you just downloaded. Also, the new book by Seth Godin called This is Marketing is great as well. These are 3 great resources for branding and identity. And remember, you are at a stage in your business where time is literally more important than money. So hire a marketing professional like Annie from greateststorycreative.com to help you brand your business. This will probably take 6 months of work, but it will be worth every dollar that you spend on it. Also, client acquisition cost. Study your marketing budget and effectiveness. You should never spend more than 1/3 of your client's total lifetime value on marketing. And keep in mind, the client acquisition cost goes up substantially once you cross that $100,000 revenue benchmark. So make sure you have a properly funded marketing account if you're trying to grow above $100,000. And to help keep those under control, read Purple Cow by Seth Godin. A lot of people think that they're doing great work and that their good work and their good name is a purple cow, is something people are just going to go tell everybody about. But it's not actually, unless you're literally the only person in your area doing good work and everybody else is like taking a sledgehammer to the piano and leaving it in splinters. Your good work is just expected. It's no longer enough to differentiate your services. So get better online reviews, tell a better story, and stop wasting money on marketing that isn't working.
And finally, employee and technical training. You're a one-person show, but you probably don't have all the technical skills you need to arrive at your destination. So invest in any areas that you're lacking in. Become an RPT. Attend the piano technician master classes. Attend a PTG conference. Watch free online technicals. Attend a factory training seminar. Even taking classes like things that we're offering from the Gazelle School of Business. There are tons of ways you can improve your technical skills. So dive in, because there is direct correlation between your technical skills, your confidence, and your ability to generate more revenue.
Fix poor salesmanship issues, right? If you think that being a better salesman is all that's needed to 3xing revenue, you're mistaken. It is an important piece of the puzzle though, but it is not the problem. So set a good goal to simply improve this area of your life by like 15%. You just need to look in the mirror, grow a little, and fix any problems. You don't need to jam the accelerator to the floor. Have you applied elements of the previous things we just listed? Have you become more disciplined? Have you simplified your speech? Have you made it easy for people to understand you? Have you honed your story? Have you made it easy for people to do business with you? All of these are directly tied to being a better salesman, right? And if you haven't simplified your website, you don't want to double your marketing costs just to send people to grind against a brick wall, right? You haven't doubled anything in this case except your expenses. So fix your website, right? Have you given out more condition reports this year? Just sending an estimate for work and having a conversation can add $40,000 to your top line revenue.
This is about giving your business the infrastructure it needs to be able to triple revenue. You can't build a big house on a small foundation. 18 months from now, we simply want to be doing triple what we're doing today. And that's totally doable if you focus on the right things.
So let's show you how to build a $300,000 book of business working as a one-man show. And let's talk more about the actual practicals about how to actually do this as a one-person show without killing yourself along the way.
This is attainable, and it's only $1,250 a day. And that is with taking 4 weeks of vacation off a year. So without vacations, it only changes the equation by about $100 a day. But you're going to need that rest to keep your saw sharp. So for the next 18 months, you're going to trade $100 a day to keep your sanity by taking vacation time, and you're going to become a $300,000 company. So you're going to start where you're at. First off, if you're a $30,000 business, you need to focus on becoming a $420 a day company first. And that's a $100,000 a year company. Then pause, take some rest, and reset your goals to $300,000. That's your first step. You can't become a $300,000 company by skipping that first watershed moment of becoming a $100,000 company. Again, if you're a $30,000 company, you can't jump straight to 300. You're going to first go from 30 to 100. So to do that first, but don't stay there long.
Solve this entire problem in $100 a day chunks and $100 a day solutions. Right, we're trying to get to $1,250 per day. That's 12 $100 solutions. So we have good news for you. You already have $700 a day of a solution sitting in your tool bag.
So remember step one, start where you're at. Well, you've already got yourself to $420 a day by becoming a $100,000 company. Now you can get to $700 a day just by doing more service and raising your rates a little. Watch the pricing webinar if you want to know how to do this. Time-wise, earning this $700 a day should only be costing you about 6 to 8 hours a day. Remember, we've hired an accountant, and you've freed up as much time as you can using Gazelle's automation. So great, you're working a full-time job, charging about $700 a day. That's a good thing. Now our problem just got smaller, which means all you have left to solve are two really easy problems.
Problem number one, don't kill yourself, right? We are not going to work more than a full-time load to get to this $300,000 benchmark. That's a rule, because it's not worth it if you kill yourself along the way, right? But we still need to generate another $500 a day, which means we're going to do this by working smarter, not harder. At the end of this journey, you are going to be doing $300,000 a year, working a solid but not overwhelming full-time load. And right now, 100% of your revenue has a huge time commitment attached, meaning you're trading time for dollars in your client's house in front of their piano. But 18 months from now, this will not be as big of a problem, because 40% of your revenue will be coming from things that don't have a huge time commitment attached. And here's how we're going to get there.
Everything you do has proven to be profitable. When you start focusing on profit, you get a pay raise. And remember, you don't have time to mess around with things that are not going to work. If you're not able to do something profitably, then you need to cut it out of your business today. You can always come back to it later, but for now, it's not going to help you triple your revenue. So stop offering that service. Stop selling that product. Just cut it out of your business. Either charge more so you can pull in a profit, or get used to telling people, no, I'm sorry, I cannot do that anymore.
Everyone in your company needs to make you money. Now, I know I told you that we would do this at $300,000 as a one-man show, but the reality is there are people around the edges of your business right now who are either costing you time and money or adding to your profit. Every single one of these people need to be either making you money or freeing up your time so you can make money, right? You have a $300,000 mind. Don't waste it by pushing paperwork. Let Gazelle do that for you. And tell everyone you're focusing on tripling your revenue over the next 18 months. If someone in your life is costing you time and not benefiting you financially, especially if they're in your business, they're a leech. They might be a really nice leech, and they might even be a family member or a friend, but they are not going to help you reach your goal. So don't let them into your company, right? You can still be their friend. Just don't let them into your company. You don't need them to get to $300,000. You actually need them to just be a friend so you can focus on getting to $300,000 without them.
Additional services. Now remember, you need to be doing this, but we're already doing this to get to the $700 a day. You already ramped up from $420 to $700. This came from selling more services and to existing customers, but we can go ahead and check this box. Additional services has been covered already.
Add-ons that cost you very little time. We're going to cover two here, but there's actually probably a half dozen or so of these, and it's going to be up to you to kind of go find them and evaluate it. All I'm interested in is this thing that I can do going to generate money for me with this much time commitment? And if it's not, can I do it in such a way that in like 30 seconds, I can get that done and I can charge $35 for it or something, right? So $35 for 1 minute of time, that's a great trade. So one way you can get this is by offering insurance estimates that clients can easily send their insurance company to help them properly insure their instrument. All this says is, if you were to replace your piano with a new piano today, it's going to cost this much. Go make sure you have a full replacement value policy valued with a writer at this dollar value. And you put that on a letterhead or something. You put it as a template. So you can just snap a picture, write a dollar value, sign the paper, and give it to them. Takes about 30 seconds once you set it up. Right, $70 to $100 a day could easily be coming in on this 1 or 2 minute little process for you. And don't do it in a way that it takes you 10 or 15 minutes to put it together, right? Just one picture, one signature, one, written little value thing, right? That's all you need. Also, look at selling like fancy caster cups, right? These aren't the run-of-the-mill boring ones. These are the ones that have pizzazz. Sell them for $75 in such a way that you're able to net, say, $30 on them. So every time you walk into a client's house, it's like, hey, look, these caster cups will look really good under your grand piano and they'll protect your floor. Hey, doesn't this match the room? Right? And then boom, there's $30. It took you like a minute to just pop them around the piano and you're done. Right? Sell covers and string covers. Just be the middleman and put a markup on it and then offer it to the client for X price. These things alone can easily add about $100 a day in free cash flow without eating up gobs of your time. So go find 4 or 5 of them, pile them in, just be ready with them, and look for those opportunities.
More profitable repair jobs. Sure, you're busy doing $7 a day, but if you give me the chance to do a $1,700 repair that'll only cost me 8 hours of work, well, let's go. We call this tucking profit margin in shop jobs. It's hard to get this much in the client's home, but if you can take the action home for a quick refurb and get $1,700, well, done. Now that's going to move the needle. So Jamp Chaser sales and installs also fall in this category because you're often trading out lower paying work for higher paying work. Bottom line is keep your eye out for more profitable jobs and don't be afraid to tuck a few $100 extra bucks into this quote.
Parts markup. Stop giving away your parts at cost. Just stop it, okay? Stop. You can't do that anymore. You're never going to get to $300,000 if you're giving your parts away at cost. Remember, everything you do needs to make you money. You spent time to order the part. You knew exactly which part to order. So mark it up 30, 50, 100%, and mark small parts up 500%. Stop apologizing for being the expert. You are now requiring everybody in your company, including your clients, to kindly value you for your time and your expertise.
Subcontract the busy periods. So remember all those spinets you tuned last December that were on their last leg? So you're going to offload these to a young tech during the busy season so you have extra capacity for the clients with grands who will pay you $2,000 for 1 day of work in January. And yeah, you guessed it. That young technician is going to make you money. You're going to put a markup on their work just like you would parts. You're going to give them a 1099 and you're going to be profitable and be done with it.
Move pianos. No, I'm not talking about you moving pianos because you don't have time to move pianos, right? I'm talking about your company partnering with a piano moving company in your area so you can make $25 on every move you schedule or send their way.
Sell repair jobs, but then sub them out to others. But I don't have a big shop? No problem. I don't have the skills? No problem. You know a guy. Partner with a rebuilder in the area. Swing a deal so that you can bid out jobs. Send them to their shop for a profit and try to make $500 or $1,000 or even $1,500 in markup. All you do is schedule. You make $25 on the move, then you send it to the shop and you make $1,500, and then you show up and you bill for 4 tunings over the next year. So all in all, now you've sold a job that pays you $1,600 next year for 4 appointments of your time. That's $400 per appointment.
That'll move the needle. And those are the types of things we're looking for. So is $300,000 really possible as a one-man show? Yes. We just gave you 5 $100 a day ideas to increase your revenue without spending much more time than you already are. And if done well, a few of these ideas can actually become a $200 a day solution. With Gazelle saving you time, $300,000 a year as a one-person show is now within reach. And remember, we are not stressing out or trying to get a $100,000 company to do $300,000 of sales. No, we're simply building a $300,000 company where $300,000 is the floor. And remember, this company has a much higher potential and looks vastly different than what you might have today. It is built different. You're a different leader because you had to do a bunch of personal growth to get here. And you're now working differently, requiring profit, requiring everything you do to be profitable. And you're working better than you ever have in the past. You've built a new company where it is simply easier to generate $300,000. The short answer to the next question of is $1 million company possible and do they actually exist is actually, well, yes, they already exist in our industry. But there's a reason experts say $100,000 a year and your first million in revenue is always the hardest, because to get past your first $100,000 plateau, it requires a major shift in what you believe is possible and your understanding of how to get there. And to get past the first $1 million plateau requires an equally large shift from a solo-based operation to a team-based operation. But once you clear these two plateaus, you can easily 3x again and again and again, because now you know how it works.
Tripling revenue is actually really easy. If you look at your revenue potential, make sure everything is profitable, and change your expectations and walk into this new business with your eyes wide open and the lights on. You really can do this. And remember, $1 of profit is the ultimate success story. Once you know how to be profitable, you can triple a company as many times as you want. So while we transition to the Q&A and Luke sorts through the questions, here's a list of upcoming webinars that are coming soon. We're going to be covering every topic you can imagine related to building and running a piano service business. And the team at Gazelle is excited to help you find the tools you need to save your time and wow your customers, so you can focus on growing your business and doing what you enjoy most.
Thank you, guys. That was fantastic. All right, we've had several questions trickle in, and I'd like to encourage everybody, feel free to use that Q&A button. We'll be here answering questions as long as you need. But let me go ahead and start with a suggestion, actually. Ron Moore suggested, when you were talking about books, he recommended Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. I haven't read it, but he recommended it, so I thought I'd pass it on.
Did somebody put that link to that in the chat for folks?
Yeah, I'll look it up.
Okay. Maybe Ron could put that in there if he wants.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. All right. So earlier in the webinar, you were talking about infrastructure and wondering if somebody asked the question if you could define infrastructure for us.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of infrastructure, you kind of think of it initially like bridges, roads. Like from a government standpoint, infrastructure are the things in the surroundings around you that help you get from point A to point B safely and more efficiently, right? So that's what infrastructure is in our normal life. In a business, infrastructure is anything that helps you achieve something more efficiently. So hiring an office staff is going to require some infrastructure for you and for them. It's going to require communication. So your telephone here, right? That's a piece of infrastructure to hire the office staff so you can pick up the phone and call. But from a business standpoint, really what we're talking about is all the processes that go around having these other parts and elements to your business that either weren't there before or were not defined well before.
All right, thank you. Also, somebody else asked if you could give a few examples of some attainable 12-week goals. You talked about 12-week goals, but can you give some examples of what they could be?
Sure, I'll give one example of a 12-week goal. So one example might be, over the next 12 weeks, I'm going to go through my database and I'm going to clean out every single dead-end customer. Somebody who hasn't had anything to do with me for the last 3 years. And by doing that, I know that now I've cut down on my marketing costs, and I've also put a finer point on some of my ways I'm going to approach my customers. That's just one example of one attainable 12-week goal.
Yeah.
Tim, you're doing this all the time.
Yeah. I typically have a 12-week goal that's going to take me about 4 weeks. I'm usually leery of any goal that's going to take me more than 6 weeks of work because it's probably too big of a goal. I probably just need to break it down into something smaller. So I'll typically have like a 4-week goal, a 2-week goal, a 2-week goal, and maybe a 3-week goal, and some wiggle room in there. But what I love are the 1-day goals, right? So I might work for 2 weeks on one goal, and then I'll get that done. And then I'll have a 1-day goal. And the 1-day goal just might simply be, what did I do recently? I had a bunch of parts and tools that I needed to order for some apprentices. And so I put it on a 12-week goal. And I just said, hey, this goal should take me about an afternoon. And sure enough, I checked something off and I went, okay, it's time to order the tools for everybody and the parts. And so I went to Shaft's website and I spent 3 hours checking off and adding things to my cart, and I paid for it and it shipped, and a week later it showed up and I checked that off, right? So I like getting those things down so they're attainable. And then I had 2 more things to do. And let's just say you made a mistake and you accidentally loaded yourself up with 4 1-day goals, right? And boom, 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 boom. 4 days later, you're done. Well, we're not going to sit on an arse for another 11 weeks. No, we're just going to accelerate the week of rest. And we're going to just take that week to then set 4 new goals. You probably need to be a little more ambitious. But having like a 4-week goal, a 2-week goal, a 2-day goal, and a 3-week goal, those are really good ideas. But the first time you do this, you're going to be really bad at it. You probably will pick goals that are too big. You're just going to keep getting better at getting these things smaller and smaller and smaller until you get a feel for, okay, that's a 2-week goal. I can get that done in 2 weeks.
All right, thank you. We had somebody write in that says a lot of these ideas are some common sense, and we mentioned Gazelle. He says you really didn't explain how Gazelle is going to help grow your business. I'm wondering if I think he's wanting to know what actual features would help.
The first place that Gazelle helps grow your business is in organization and automation. Because you can now more efficiently run your entire business from the app, from the client's home, you take things like sending invoices or estimates. I can easily do that standing in front of the client. You take things like automated reminders. Gazelle automatically sends email or text message reminders to your clients for you as their pianos come due for service. And so now when I walk out of the client's home, if they didn't pre-book the next appointment, then I know that Gazelle is just going to send them a reminder in 6 months or 12 months, according to the schedule. And speaking of scheduling, our Smart Routes allows clients to schedule their own appointments and makes it easier for me to book appointments with a 2-minute drive time for 6 months from now. And so instead of thumbing through the calendar on my phone, I just say, tell me what I have available. And it says, listen, next, where are we? We're in January. So next June, on the 17th, you're scheduled to tune their neighbor's piano. That would be a great day to schedule their next one for. And so it just automates all of that, and it makes my time, it frees all my time up to focus on things that I didn't have time for before.
All right, thanks. We had another person ask, can you clarify the difference between B and B prime in the 3X model? Maybe give an example or two.
Yeah. George?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So I think it's easy to get caught up in that idea of what is B and what is B prime. So really, when we talk about that, if you have A and you have B, we're saying that one thing that your company currently does, you're going to stop doing it altogether. One example might be I make sure that I visit every house every time after I've done a service. I always visit them a week later to check in on things. All right, well, that's fine, and that's an A problem. We're going to get rid of that. B to B prime is when you're going to take something that's actually pretty good and you're going to change it slightly. So there's a difference between dropping a process altogether versus tweaking a process and making it slightly differently. So the difference between I call all of my clients to remind them that I'm coming, to I texted all of my clients to remind them that they're coming, that I'm coming, to I texted all of my clients through Gazelle to let them know that I'm coming, and I never had to spend any time on my phone at all. It's a B to B prime. Spending my time on the phone, not spending my time on the phone. I'm still contacting that client, but I've changed slightly my infrastructure in the way that I do it as compared to dropping the practice altogether.
Yeah. Handwritten note cards are a perfect example too, right? When I was a really small company and I was doing like 30,000 a year, I wasn't doing enough volume. And so doing handwritten cards was attainable. I could actually handwrite notes to everybody if I wanted. Well, handwritten cards turned into me looking the client in the eye. So that was B. B prime was I'm going to look them in the eye and genuinely find a way to tell them thank you and that I appreciate them. And then when I tripled again, right, it's like, okay, well, I want to keep that personality and that personal connection. But really it became me looking them in the eye. I did want to say thank you, but it was really about me creating a personal connection. And so now, because I'm tripling again, I'm not seeing all of my customers, right? I have other people who are now part of this team who are going out. So my C, I had to drop personally saying and looking into the eye of every customer because I wasn't in front of every customer anymore. But I did have to change and teach my team to be personable, to say, listen, this is how we take care of people. Make sure you're looking them in the eye and saying thank you. Right. And so all along, it's, first you're handwriting thank yous, then you're looking them in the eye, and then you're teaching other people to look them in the eye. You're actually doing the same thing, as just looking differently from an infrastructure standpoint. And so that's probably a good example of how it would go from A or B to B prime to maybe, B prime prime or C, right? Whatever it is, it's still that personal interaction.
Tim, I want to highlight something you just said there because I think it's so important to tease out, is that I think one of the biggest fears that a business owner has as they make these kinds of changes is I'm going to lose the thing that makes my company,
Yes.
right? And I think one of the first things you're going to have to do is ask yourself, what is it that I value? Get your values written down so you understand what those values are. And if you value a personal connection, which is really what Tim just said, I valued a personal connection. And that meant A, handwritten cards, A prime or B prime, now I'm making eye contact. And now I'm going to have my own staff be the ones making eye contact. But I never lost my value of personal contact. And if you need to have that written down and know what your personal values are so that as your company changes, you don't look at your company one day and say, this is not what I ever wanted to be doing.
Yeah.
Because as long as you're following that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, the idea between tripling revenue, this isn't like a profit at all cost, revenue at all cost model. No, I want you to actually be having more fun in your company and love it even more when it's 3x than you do today. Yeah. But I know that if you don't change the infrastructure and you triple, you're going to hate that company because it's going to stress you out the wazoo. So by changing the infrastructure, we're creating something that you're able to love once you've 3x because it's not stressing you out. But another example that I actually did as well on the B prime and infrastructure and how you change, when I started going after online reviews and wanting people to give me online reviews, I had a 3-step process. First, I would look them in the eye and I would ask if they would be kind enough to give me an online review. Then I would hand them a pre-printed card with instructions on how to do it. Then I would go out to my car and I would handwrite an email and link them to a website where they would do it. And then a week later, I would follow up and ask and I would check to make sure they'd done it or hadn't done it. Like I was really trying. And I was all real nice and low key and I wasn't mean about it if they didn't do it, but I was trying to get them to follow through. Well, as the company grew, I physically didn't have enough time. And so I dropped that to just, I'm going to give them a card. I'm going to send them an email, but I'm not going to do the follow-up email because that wasn't as effective or I already had 100 online reviews and it really didn't make as much of a difference. And then eventually I realized that handing them the printed card I had actually made it easy enough to give me an online review, and I was able to turn words around so my words were more effective than the printed card. And so then I got rid of the card because my words and that email or text. And then once texting came along, I realized I could send the email or text, but schedule it for 7 p.m. that night. So if I was asking them to give me an online review and they were rushing out the door to pick up their kids, instead of sending the email or text right away, I would just say, thank you. I would use my words, and then I would schedule the text that said, hey, just in case, here's the link. But I would send it, 4 hours later when they were home after dinner. And I would just automate that through Gazelle. So then when I drove away from their house, I didn't have to think about it again. But to them, they felt like I picked up my phone and texted them at 7 p.m. Hey, I promised I would send you this link. Here it is. And so that was an example of also how I transitioned as my company grew. Because, not to beat this horse to death, I'll never forget the day that my office staff called me and I said, hey, how's your day going? And she said, Tim, it's okay. I have literally spent 9.5 hours on the phone. And I thought, I believe it. But that was the day when I said, I'm incapable of filling that position myself, because I can't be out tuning pianos and spend 9.5 hours on the phone taking calls from prospective clients, right? And so those are all ways that I adapted over the years. So.
Thank you. We've had a ton of questions come in as you guys were talking there. I just want to put in one word that Richard said. He's an existing Gazelle customer. And he says, I just want to say that Gazelle is the world's cheapest office assistant. Not many people will work for $150 a month.
I love it. Yeah.
Thank you, Richard.
That's great.
All right. We had another question that said, how do you arrive at a lifetime value for a customer?
Yeah. We have a lot of other questions, Luke.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to be brief on this only because I could fill an entire webinar on the CAC ratio. Mm-hmm. So let me give you a couple of shortcuts. One shortcut for a piano service company, you probably don't need to spend more than 5% of your revenue on marketing ever. You're a service company. You're not profitable enough to do that. You don't have 300% gross margins. So if you're spending more than 5% of your revenue on marketing, you've got a problem. Go look at that. If you're not spending at least 3 to 4% of your revenue on marketing, you're probably not spending enough. And so long as your infrastructure is right and you have room to grow, you could dial that up a couple of percentage points and probably still be effective. But total lifetime value and the client acquisition cost relationship, if I'm selling a widget for $5, or I buy a widget for $5, I sell it for $15, I make $10 on the widget, and I know that customers, once they buy one, will buy 5, then I know that I make $10 5 times. That customer's lifetime value is $50, and then they disappear and they never come back again. So you look at the average amount that customers spend with you from start to finish until they disappear, and you kind of get an idea. If any of you are using Gazelle, you got an email at the beginning of the year that showed you your client's lifetime value according to the invoices you put into Gazelle. So right now, I know that my well-loved piano client lifetime value, I'll change the number, but let's just say it's $250. And I know that because 3 weeks ago, I got that email from Gazelle. Gazelle tracks that for me. And so now I know, okay, $250 is the lifetime value, and 1/3 of that needs to be my marketing cost. I can't spend more than, say, $80 getting a client, or I'm going to go broke. So anyway, but that's a whole nother webinar that we're going to end up doing on marketing. Let's just move on, because I don't know if I can cover that anymore in the Q&A. I did.
Sure thing. We have one guy wrote in and said, is it possible to grow a business without talking to customers by the phone? The piano technician has autism. We seem to be maxed out using emails through the Gazelle system.
Utilize text messages and get creative with video. And, well, I mean, yes, because your business has a very unique element to it that nobody else does. And so you're going to have to entrepreneurialize around that. And honestly, that's probably where you just focus on incremental stuff. So you're maxed out on emails. Let's, instead of sending 3 emails, let's send 1 email, 1 text, 1 email. Let's try that for a little bit and track it. George, do you have some ideas on this?
Well, I think what I heard was what I just heard was a company that's hit a plateau.
Yeah.
And so I think what I'm hearing is that's, yes, look at your communications with your clients. That is an excellent place to look, but also take a step back and start looking at the other areas of your company as well. Because I'm hearing a company that's saying we've plateaued, we feel like we're not having any more luck getting more customers. And that might mean a chance to take a step back and look at your marketing, look at your infrastructure. How am I doing my business? When I say by phone calls, are you currently wasting time on voicemail? Maybe you need to get a voicemail system. So what's the other infrastructure pieces?
Let me see if I can phrase it this way. What I heard is contacting the customers is important to us. And right now our business infrastructure is such that the technician contacts the customer, but we have this problem. One of our technicians has autism and doesn't talk to people very easily, and they're not as effective. Great. That's an A to A prime kind of thing, or B to B prime. B prime is he's not the person talking on the phone, somebody else is. So let's hire a minimum wage employee to be that person talking on the phone for him. That's probably one of your best solutions there. And that's a good B2B prime.
B2B prime, let's get an answering service.
Yeah.
Or let's really push on getting people to our website for self-scheduling, and just have an answering machine that says, we are, please visit our website to schedule now.
Yeah. And be honest, be authentic. You don't need to be inauthentic about this. But, we've worked with other people that have had autism, and we basically just set these things up to be able to say, hey, I have autism. And so when I walk in the door, if I don't look you in the eye, it's not anything about you. It's just that I have autism, and I'm just going to get to work and work on the piano. And if you have any questions, I'll be there and I'll talk and smile. And then, this is the process I go through. And so you're just using automation, but, thinking on creative other avenues, like hiring the office assistant, where it's like, okay, let's just think differently of how we can solve the problem of talking to customers. But yeah, that's a fun challenge. Email us privately if you have more specific questions about that, and we'll be happy to jump in there with you.
And I'll say that too, if anybody has a private question they've got, feel free to email us, support@gazelleapp.io. We'd be happy to answer those as well. All right, moving on to the next one. What do you feel like would be a realistic maximum income goal if I don't want to hire an office assistant or other technicians?
Then I think the real question is, how hard do you want to work, and how many hours are you planning on putting time-wise in? So I think one of the things we've talked about is that you can hit $80,000 a year, but you're going to be running pretty hard on this. Tim, would you say something different there?
Yeah. You can do whatever you want and make it work for you. This is the beauty of like being your own boss. It's like, hey, I don't want to have an office assistant. I don't want to have another technician. But if I woke up in your shoes, here's what I would do. I would say, listen, if I want to make $100,000 a year, I don't want to be in a $30,000 company. So I'm still going to build that. I'm going to think about building a $100,000 company that can coast at $100,000 a year, but I'm just going to omit the piece, and I'm going to, we recently used Acuity scheduling on Well Loved Piano's website to get rid of voicemail. And so now you can't leave a voicemail for us because we were just spending way too much time listening to voicemail. But you can go schedule a specific time for me to call or our office staff to call you back. Well, you could do something similar. And the times could just be between 9 and 10 in the morning and 4 and 6 p.m. So now you don't have to pick up the phone. You don't have to hire anybody. And people schedule a specific 10-minute interval for you to go call them back that night. They're served, you're served, and you're not having to lose that revenue by not talking to the customers. Certainly push automated online scheduling. Push that hard. Put it on your voicemail. Hey, I don't pick up my phone. I'm busy. I'm in customers' homes. This isn't you. I just don't have time to do that. I would love to take care of you, but go book the appointment. Email me your question if you have a question. Or if you need a phone call, go schedule it on my website. That's how I would solve it. The bigger limiting factor being, as soon as your schedule fills up, start raising rates. And we talked about this go watch the pricing webinar. In the pricing webinar, we talked about a freelancer versus a business owner. You're a freelancer. You're always going to be a freelancer. Freelancers increase their income by constantly raising rates. And so you're going to become the guy who gets $400 or $500 per piano. And that's what you're going to do. And you're going to make $150,000, $200,000 a year doing that. And it's going to be fine. But you're going to do it differently than everybody else.
All right. Next one here, we've got somebody who has a specific question about something that's not scaling in his business and doesn't know how to get around it. He says, how should I handle clients who routinely call for last-minute appointments? Sometimes it's a university client that gets a discount. This happens to me a lot in December. Should I fire these customers or charge a premium, or what should I do?
Well, I've got a university. I treat my university differently than I treat everybody else. They're the one person I don't have on automated reminders right now. And they know that if they need me, they pick up the phone. But I've also sat down with the front office, and I just, at the front of the semester, I just said, I need your entire performance schedule. I need to know in advance, weeks in advance, when you need me here. And they looked at me like, nobody's ever required that of us. Next week, we need you on Friday. I said, no, I need to know when you need me in September. And they said, well, we don't know when we need you in September. And I said, okay, well, I tell you what, here's the deal. When you need me, I will be available between 4 and 5 in the morning to come in that day and tune the piano, but I cannot guarantee I'll be able to be there before the concert. Well, sure enough, they called, we need you tomorrow. It's like, okay, great, I'll be there at 4 a.m. Now, I didn't like that, but they were like, oh my goodness, that was really inconvenient for him. And then the piano didn't stay in tune by that night, and they complained about it. And I said, listen, if you want the piano to stay in tune and you want it tuned before the concert, I need to know between now and December when you need it done. Otherwise, I can only do it at 4 a.m. I'm literally booked 6 months in advance. I'm sorry. And they said, huh, okay, well, let's get you that schedule. So it took a little bit, but I was able to solve it. And now I've got them trained. So my university, that's separate. Customers who, let me phrase it this way. The person who goes to your website and is willing to book 4 months in advance and wait for you is willing to pay you more than your base rate because they want you. You can sell that person a $2,000 regulation. The person who wants you tomorrow, you can probably sell them a tuning. So for public customers, I'm not worried. I'm booked 4 to 6 months in advance. If you're not willing to wait for me personally, you can book one of our other technicians. But if I was a one-man show, I'd have the same problem. Book me for April or May. And if you don't want to wait that long, I'm sorry, I can't help you. You're not my tribe. And I think that's where we mentioned that as you grow, these businesses identify their tribe and they know who's in their tribe. So I can tell you who's in the well-loved piano tribe. The customers in the well-loved piano tribe are people who care about their piano more than anything else in the house. And they're willing to spend more on it, disproportionate to everything else in the house. Those are the people in the well-loved piano tribe. And they also happen to be people who are willing to wait weeks and weeks or months for an appointment. And we make more money on those people than we do the people who need something tomorrow. We can't provide that. You're not in our tribe. We're really comfortable with that. So you probably need to go read the book Tribes by Seth Godin and just get really comfortable with that idea.
I'll also just add, as a conversation about what Gazelle can do for your company, the self-scheduling rules that we set up with you can allow you to be able to tell your clients when they check in to try to book something. It tests things like, how far out are they trying to book something, and how close are they trying to book something. And so you can set your rules to say, if they're trying to book within 2 days, then give them this message instead. And so it's now your automated system that's saying to them, you know what, I don't normally book 3 days out, but if you really needed it that bad, you can call me. Or you might say, you know what, I don't book 3 days out. However, please try to find a date that works for you. So that's one of the places I think Gazelle excels, is finding ways to tell your client things that they don't want to hear automatically.
It's a lot easier to have your automated system tell them that than to have you tell them that, because you would probably go about for 2 weeks feeling bad about it, when for them, they were just like, oh, well, I just waited 2 weeks, no big deal. So let your automated system do its job and filter your clients for you. The scheduling rules are really flexible.
We have a couple of questions here about branding. I'll ask them both at the same time. My company bears my name. Do you think I could triple revenue without changing that, or do I need to completely rebrand? And then another question says, any advice for brand new, just starting businesses? Actually, I think I may have read that wrong. That I saw the word brand that was not related to branding.
For the brand new business, we did a webinar a few months ago. Go to the growwithgazelle.com/school. There's a launching a piano service business webinar just like this. It's 100% focused on launching a piano service business. So you can go watch that archive now. And then certainly ask your questions to us once you watch that. We'd be happy to help you. To the other question, it was, Luke, my name is in the business name. Do I need to rebrand, or could I triple if I'm John Smith Piano Service?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, you could still triple. You are going to have a very specific tribe of people you're going after. And so you don't need to take your name out of the company. One of the things you do want to do, though, is think, in 5 years, where do I want to be? In 10 years, where do I want to be? One of the reasons I chose to move away from Barnes Piano when we rebranded to Well Loved Piano is because I knew I was going to have a team of technicians, and I wasn't going to service more than 5 to 10% of the customers. So I didn't want a company that built a brand and a tribe where everybody expected me. I was going to build a company where I taught other people to do the same level of work that I do, and people wanted them, not me. And so that was core to the branding that we chose. But for you, if you don't want to hire people and it's going to be you in 10 years and it's going to be you in 20 years, then by all means, put your name in there. Don't think twice. Get a nice logo and read Don Miller's story brand book, Building a Story Brand, because you can build a story brand and build a story under that just as well as you could under, Philadelphia Piano Service or Denver Piano Service. The name doesn't matter. It's the story that you're telling.
All right, we had somebody ask, how can I use Gazelle to collect online reviews? I'm thinking scheduled messages and things like that we could do. I know you've done a lot of this, Tim.
Yeah, I've done a lot of it. So I use the scheduled message feature. And then what I do is I complete my appointments in the car before I drive away. And as I complete the appointment, I've asked them for an online review. I schedule the email or text message to go out either now or later, and I drive away. And then if you go to, if you downloaded that document earlier, we talk about online reviews in there. But I have a hidden page on our website, welllovedpiano.com/reviews. It's not in the public menus, but in the email or the text message, I link there. And then from there, they can go pick the city that they're a part of and then link direct. I just make it easy for them. That's all I did. When I ask you for an online review, I want it to be so easy. You can just go tap, 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 done. Right? That's what I wanted. So I had the schedule message, I had the link, I had the website, and I had the social profiles all linked in. Boom, it was easy. And that's when people started giving us more and more online reviews.
I want to underscore too, one of the cool things about the way Gazelle works too is you can pre-write these message templates. So you can write out this message. Think it was great servicing your piano yesterday. Would you consider going to this link to give me an online review? We really appreciate it, or whatever what you want it to be. And then you just get in the habit. This is one of those things like what they were mentioning, where it takes you 2 minutes, but it could really mean a lot to growing your business and as far as getting revenue. So just at the end of the appointment, you schedule one of these messages to go out the next day. So it looks like you took the time to think about it and actually write them. But it really just it's a matter of selecting it from the list and sending it. And scheduling
and with the new app that we launched just a few months ago, the new app allows you to edit those templates on the fly. So let's say you have your standard template, you just send, and then you get to a client where you're like, wait, I wanted to say something extra. No worries, just edit it on the fly, send it, and you're good.
Yep, great, thanks. So we had a question just now come in. I was just going to say that we're through our questions, but we just had another one come in. Do you feel that using social media venues such as Facebook and Twitter add value to your clients? I have mostly stayed away from being, I've mostly stayed away from this, being well connected to these types of venues. Do you think
10 years ago and 15 years ago, yes. Today, not so much. Think about it this way. Imagine the ocean. Now put a drop of yellow dye in the ocean. You want to turn the ocean yellow. Facebook post, Facebook post, Facebook post. It's not going to change the color of the ocean. You are fighting infinity nowadays. And this is, I'll actually step this back. This isn't a social media problem. People are so inundated now with so many options, so many channels, so many distractions, they can't focus. And so this is why making it easy for them is so important. If it's not easy for them, they don't do it. And so we're not sure where social media goes from here. If you haven't jumped on the bandwagon now and you have a good tribe and a good following, you might not need it. But at the same time, you might Google online reviews. That's technically social media. Yes, do that. I think you want that. As far as like having an actively managed Facebook page, that might require a part-time employee to manage. I don't know if that's a good fit for you unless you're a bigger company, but it doesn't sound like you are. So I wouldn't feel the pressure to do that. But what I would do, I would not walk away from that and say, the way I've been doing it is fine. It's not, okay? The way that things worked 30 years ago don't work anymore. And just because social media is not going to work for you, you need a purple cow. You need to figure out what your purple cow is. So go buy Seth Godin's book, Purple Cow, and Tribes. Those two books kind of go together. You need to find your tribe, and then you need to have some way of reaching that tribe. And if your tribe is simply all the people in your local church and all of their friends, and that's all you need, great, that's your tribe. But if it's bigger than that, then you actually need to give some real good thought to, well, who is in my tribe? How am I going to reach that tribe? And where are these people now? And how are they communicating? Now I need to go be that and do that.
All right, thank you, fellas. Well, we've made it through our list of questions. I think that's it. If you guys have anything else to add, otherwise we can probably wrap it up here.
Well, I would say that as you're mulling these things over, as you're doing the readings that you're going to do, listening to those podcasts, contact us, email us. We would love to hear about how you're looking at growing and what you're doing to do it. And as you're looking at infrastructure, this is what we're here for. Gazelle has invested in a personal business coach for you, and that's what I'm here for. And that's what the Gazelle School of Business is all about. So we want to hear from you, and we want to help you grow.
Yeah. You know, I'll give you a quick backstory here of Gazelle. We hired George as a personal business coach, free to the industry and free to our users, because these problems were coming up. George is our B prime or C prime, right? We were simply looking at this problem like, okay, we're having a hard time like taking care of these customers. We're building our tribe. We're growing as a company. Like, these people need to know how to build a business. What are we going to do about it? And that's why we brought George in on the team. And so, you know, take advantage of that. He's here to help you build and grow your business and to do it well. That's his entire job here at Gazelle. And we're having a blast. Right? We're having fun doing these webinars. These have been great. We have 2 more webinars on the list, on the official docket, and then we're going to be adding a whole nother slew for the rest of the year. But our next one is February 27th, hiring your first office assistant, right? So we're going to cover hiring an office assistant, hiring a technician, and then we're going to have a whole different slate of ones that we add to this for the rest of the year. So thank you so much for coming and being a part of these. We've been reaching more and more people every time we do it, and we're just having a blast. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you, everybody. To everybody who registered for this webinar, I will be sending out a link probably tomorrow, maybe Monday, depends on how it goes, with a link to a recording of this webinar. And you can always get a recording on and all the handouts that we have at growwithgazelle.com/school. All right, everybody, have a good evening. Thanks for joining us. Good night.